Welcome to the About podcast. We are Rosa's Cantina.
Rosas Cantina.
We have no chips and salsa.
We do not. We are not the fucking restaurant Rosas Cantina. We just have poor choice in band names.
It's not a poor choice.
It's a great choice.
It's a loved choice by many Mexican restaurants.
Welcome back to the About podcast. It's us. You know us if you listen. There's no chance you stumbled on this accidentally. Last episode was with Kevin. And today we're way more looking. We hate Kevin. We're so glad that this one is not. Yeah.
Over it.
Yeah. New year, new guests.
Yeah. We're here today with Rosas Cantina, Carissa, Schroeder, and Josh Renner. Hey guys.
Hi.
Hello.
Right on. It's not something weird. It's not like Schrader or something.
It is Schrader.
Is it Schrader?
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry. I fucked
It's okay.
it up.
This is like all the media I've been doing lately. This is like actually like it seems to be the PSA.
Oh.
Schrader.
That was very polite of you to like let that go by until I asked.
This is how it's done. I've actually adopted Schroeder as like kind of a pet. And I was telling Catherine Beeks a few weeks ago in this interview, we talked about the same thing, and I was like, I actually wish people would
really
just...
good etiquette, Carissa. Let's mention other podcasts and radio shows.
Oh my goodness.
That's a really cool thing to do.
Maybe it would draw listeners. You guys could use a hashtag and steal some audience members.
Our ego's very fragile. We're guarded and weak.
Okay, let's say I was doing this podcast a few weeks ago, and we talked about this already.
Was it? Were you doing Listen Local?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Right.
Listen
And,
Local. Hello. Shout out to Catherine Beeks.
Hi,
Catherine.
Beaks.
Anyway, I kind of wish people would just call me Schroeder, like the Peanuts character. But like, you can't pick your own nickname, and I can't shred on piano quite that well yet.
Oh, yeah, I was hoping you were going to keep it going.
Oh, damn it. But I wasn't in a key.
Oh, I felt the key there.
That's a minor pentatonic. That's not right. Yeah. Okay. Anyway.
That's all. It's
We'll record that later.
yeah. This is the
We'll get it in post. Yeah.
a PSA that my name is Schrader.
Schrader.
Yeah. I'm on a
Carissa
publicity tour. It's called Schrader, not Schroeder.
Dude, that's a
good
great idea for
Yeah.
a tour name.
That's a good album name for you guys.
It would be a
is.
good album. Well, yeah, maybe not
Just
for the
spell
two
it
of
all
us, but
phonetically.
Yeah. What's
It's
that?
Schrader, not Schroeder.
What's that?
And they're like, wait, but they're Rosa's Cantina. Why the...
that's
I
weird.
don't even know what that means.
More confusion.
What's that Greek character that's like looks like an A and an E slammed together? What's that?
Oh,
I do know
like
the
an
one.
encyclopedia.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's called.
Yeah, it's some international phonetic alphabet
Yeah.
symbol.
Bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I should do that like Prince, like
Just be a symbol.
Yeah.
I think it'd be really good to be an artist and call yourself Prince, like Prints.
I was just gonna.
And just like make people all upset. Wait, you're going to see Prince tonight?
That would be awesome. Got the best Prince at the Prince show.
That's like the trick that Kraft pulled by creating a fake cheese company called Real.
Exactly. It's actually called Real Cheese.
Real cheese. Yeah.
Is the name of a company
That's
that
tricky.
But
Kraft
it's not
started.
actually
Yeah.
cheese. Yeah.
That's
And
tricky.
I'm saying this completely unverified.
Yeah,
but
just-
I'll go on record.
Okay.
Just
Fact
butter.
check.
Yeah.
Yep, that checks out. That was a visual joke, and only the people in this room got to see it.
I just passed on a visual joke when we were talking about Greek stuff.
Oh.
What the Roman guy walked into the bar. He said, "Can I get 5 beers?"
We need to. We'll post that on the website, guys. You'll post the visual joke.
You have to go to the brand new About Podcast website.
Well, okay. So tell us. What's your do you have an elevator pitch for Rosa's Cantina? We don't have one. It's no pressure. Do you
I
have
don't even
one?
know what that is.
You've done a couple
Yeah, exactly.
radio shows
I don't think
lately,
we've even
so
said yet
Yeah.
that they're of Rosa's Cantina.
Did I
Yes,
say?
yes,
I think
you
I
did.
Yeah,
Did
yeah.
we? Okay.
Right before I fucked up Chris's name.
Okay, yeah. Right.
It's water under the bridge.
Yeah. How do you describe your music? What do you?
It sounds like an internalized burp.
that just was.
No,
That's interesting. How do you
it's
capture
obscene,
that live?
but yeah, polite.
we call ourselves an Americana band under that giant umbrella of vagueness. Indie country is another descriptor, but I would say we're kind of a bluegrass-based indie country band. A lot of, kind of bluegrass instrumentation, but we don't stick to that real classic formula all the
Right.
time.
Right.
I hate to
Agreed.
do the thing because maybe this is just that it's female and male singer kind of in that style, but it's Civil Wars-ish.
Oh, those guys
Is
are
that
cool. Yeah, I like Civil
offensive
War.
to you
Shovels and
guys?
Rope. You ever heard those guys too?
Shovels and
Badass.
Rope.
Shovels and Rope? Yeah.
Shovels, Rope.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
We definitely are fans of Chris and Morgan Stapleton. Like, we love them singing together. It's
Right on.
beautiful. And the Steel Drivers, I think, is like a good comparison of our band. It was Chris Stapleton before he had the household name, and he was in a bluegrass band out of Nashville.
Whoa.
And they're awesome.
That's exciting.
And there is a
to me
female vocalist
to
in there,
check
and
that
I
out.
don't think it's Morgan. I think it's another girl. I would have to do my research, but they're awesome.
Excuse me.
Awesome.
Now I want
I was
one.
gonna be all subtle about
Your brain.
it. Try to do it under the table.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Tangerine Express IPA by Stone, a San Diego brewery.
Go get it.
Very nice.
Do that again. That was nice. No.
The express train to Tangerine Town.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Get your Tangerines Express tonight on the main stage
Did you say get your tangerines expressed?
tonight.
That's
They
fantastic.
don't want me to express my tangerines right here in front
That
of
gets
everybody.
messy, guys. We got to
That
put out
kind
the
of party.
sheets, put the plastic out.
Rubber sheets.
That's weird.
I mean, the splash zone.
Love it. I referenced that the other day with some dolphin sex. Right in the blowhole. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little random.
I'm so glad you're being your authentic self.
Can't be
I would have
anybody
it
else.
no other way. We would, seriously.
I wake up every day and be myself.
I would
It's a
love
tough
to
job.
be yourself.
Davey wakes up
Oh,
every day
hey now.
wanting to be yourself.
Hey now. I'm a little excited over here. My
So-
pants just got a little tighter.
How
What to tell you?
long have you guys been Rosa's Cantina? That was really weird. Very high.
Yeah, that sounded nervous.
Here's my question.
And I'm singing.
Well, we've probably been Rosa's Cantina for about a year,
Was it
about
just
10 months.
Was it just the two of you at first, and
Just
then you
the
kind
two
of
of us.
incorporated other
Yeah.
musicians because you were like, "This is kick ass, and we need other people to share this
Yeah,
kick
we actually
assery with."
met. I was at a Thanksgiving dinner because I eat lots. And the girl that
It
does
wasn't
my-
on Thanksgiving.
No, it's close. It's close.
Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, whatever. I eat Thanksgiving dinner every Tuesday, okay? Give me a break.
Thanksgiving Tuesday.
Her hairdresser is married to one of my good buddies, and she was there, and she was basically saying, "Oh, I got this girl. She really wants to write some country type music." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I've heard that before." I'm like, screw it. I'm in a bit of a rut, so I'll give it a go. And then we met and found out we were both from Missouri. And then immediately we wrote a song that night, I think,
That's cool.
about "Don't Go to California."
Oh, right on.
about
While
some
you
of
were
our-
in California.
Yeah, surprisingly.
We've both lived here for quite a long time.
17 years.
I've been here 11 years. That's you know proper mic technique.
It's just kind of sexy.
You just have to shove it in there.
Hey now.
Phrasing.
So yeah, that's
Cool.
And then right after we started playing, we wrote a good handful of songs, probably I don't know 8 or 10. Some were keepers, some were not.
Yeah.
A lot of them we kept. And then we brought I have another band, Push and Rope, and my bass player from there I brought in, and he's playing with us. Then we brought one of my old fiddle players in,
Right
and then
on.
brought my banjo player in too.
Yeah, we
Switched it up.
Switched the band on them. We
Yeah.
did a bait and switch, if you will. We're like, hey, you should sit in with this new band, just see if you like it. And now we're like, and you guys are in a new band.
Rosa's Cantina is your new favorite.
You're gonna make Rosa's Cantina your favorite.
Elf quotes.
We've been on, yeah, it was Elf season just ended. We've
yeah.
seen Elf like 400 times last month, and
Elf,
like,
the
make
Grinch,
work your new
Nightmare
favorite.
Before Christmas.
Work's your new favorite.
You guys know Will Ferrell turned down like some obscene number of millions of dollars to make Elf 2 for
happy
integrity.
about that.
For
No
I'm
shit.
very
Wow.
happy about
I know
that.
that
You
that.
didn't like Elf 1?
Oh, I love Elf 1.
Oh my Jesus.
But
Jeff
Elf 2
Defense.
would have been
That's the
terrible.
point. He felt
Well,
that
yeah.
that would compromise
Yeah, I
the
love
integrity
Elf
of
1.
Yeah.
Elf 1.
If only Led Zeppelin would have stopped at one album.
Well,
If
now
only-
I'm just kidding.
whatever.
I'm not comparing Elf to Led
Was
Zeppelin.
Anchorman 2 better than Anchorman?
No.
Thank you.
No, it was not.
It was not better than hardly anything.
Thank you.
Wayne's World
loved
2 was
Anchorman.
excellent, and Austin Powers 2. I think the Austin Powers trilogy is the exception to the rule in general. I think,
Well, they embraced the sequelness.
yes.
That's the thing. They were like, this is cheesy. We're going to reference our old jokes. And, yeah.
Tied it in all together.
Yeah.
They were deliberate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shit, I had a question and then it's gone.
All
Oh, I
right.
have one.
Yeah.
So before, yeah, it was creepy, right? Just
Pivot.
again, visual jokes. I'm all about the visual jokes.
This is, ladies
it in the
and
family.
gentlemen, welcome back to the Visual Jokes podcast.
The visual jokes audio only podcast.
So before we talk, I guess, about future, which we definitely want to do, I want to know about both of you individually as musicians before this. I know, Carissa, you were a chef, but you
was.
also, have been singing your whole life.
I've been singing forever, yeah. The chef was kind of a detour, but a good one that I'm very proud of. And yeah, it feels a little bit like a setback right now because I'm like kind of fighting to get back into a recognizable place amongst the musicians community and amongst the audience community. Like they haven't heard from me in 4 years. So like all of a sudden I like come back and I'm like, I'm back. And everybody's like, who are you? You're tall.
Is that the comment you get? Yeah.
Oh, you can sing. Cool. Who are you? So that's kind of a little frustrating for me because I'm like went from this like singing my whole life and then I took this big break. And in fact, I think I even said the words I quit at some point. I was like, I don't want to sing anymore. And I just felt like it wasn't taking me anywhere and I wasn't inspired and I just felt like, I kind of was doing the same thing over and over. So I changed it up.
Where'd you start before then?
I started very young at the age of about 8 years old in St. Louis in the St. Louis Symphony Children's Choir.
Awesome.
So
That's cool.
Yeah, it was
That's
really
super
cool.
cool.
So I started singing choral music young, and then they had, accompanying theory, and they were teaching circle of fifths and stuff when I was like 9, 10 years old, which is cool because I got a lot of education out of that. And then we also got to like sing in Powell Symphony Hall in these really beautiful like old cathedrals in St. Louis City. And I got to sing with the Harlem Boys Choir at some point,
That's
which was
cool.
really
That's really
cool.
cool.
So yeah, that was a really neat way to get into music. But I think I missed out totally on like the pop culture of music because I started like the choir thing so young that like when a lot of kids were getting into their first albums and like listening to like oh my God, I love the Beatles or
Right.
whoever, I was like, ooh, Handel. And now I'm not even like I'm not a musical classical or musical theater nerd any longer, but I still love the arts. Like I'll go see that and really enjoy it. But yeah, I went into college. By college age, I wanted to do jazz because it was the closest thing to pop. I kind of always wanted to be a pop star, I think, when I was a kid. I was like a little Midwestern girl. Yeah, Josh is making fart sounds over there because he hates pop music so very much. I'm gonna make you do. I'm slipping more and more like pop country into our set, and he doesn't even realize it. You do John
Hopefully
Michael
he won't
Montgomery.
listen to this podcast.
I know you never.
He'll never know.
But yeah, anyway, so college jazz, and then I started singing top 40 when I was about like 19. I had a coach in college that was like, I need subs. Like I get all this work and I can't take it all, or it doesn't pay me enough, but they need a singer and I have no one to recommend. So if you want to do it, I have jobs. And so I started making that little bit of money and I was young and it was really fun. So then I was like, then I'm like 10 years later, like, oh my gosh, I'm a top 40 singer.
Yeah.
Like, how did that happen? But it was
Right.
fun. It's been amazing. And like the stage time is invaluable.
Yeah.
Like I spent all of my 20s on stage in front of people. So it's like very comfortable for me to be up there. And I don't know. But yeah, so I think when I started chefing, I was really looking for a different creative outlet. And then when I conquered that beast, I realized just how much I missed singing. I think you said something about too that your coworkers didn't know you could sing
Yeah.
when you were
no,
chefing.
I feel like that part of your story is exactly like mine. I was kind of like over singing and I need another creative outlet. Exactly same thing. Went into it. And then I was like, all right, I get this. It's cool. It's really hard, really rewarding, but I miss singing, and I couldn't do both, really. I tried. I did musical theater. I did rock operas and stuff, but
that sounds fun.
It was too hard to do both.
It takes too much time. It's exhausting. Like you literally would be working almost 24/7, and and a lot of those hours happen at the same time.
Sure.
That's my biggest thing because I was still my bosses when I started cooking were cool enough to let me work Sunday through Thursday. So Friday and Saturday I was off to perform, but there was zero time to rehearse. So all of a sudden my band stopped learning new music, and the other bands I was in that wanted to get together, I couldn't, and it just became an issue because we were really stagnant and couldn't grow.
You just start looking like a diva to them, even though you're just at work. They're like, "Oh, fucking Carissa, too big."
I started looking like a diva who steadily put on 30 pounds over the course of 4 years. So maybe that makes me more diva. There's more fleshy, the more diva you become.
It doesn't help that you're
you
wearing.
say fleshy?
It doesn't help that you're wearing those elbow length gloves right now.
I know. Do you wear those everywhere?
Velvet
You keep
gloves.
asking me to serve you drinks. I'm.
Oh my God, poor Josh.
I know you keep looking at me like the temperature is 2 degrees, a little too hot in here. Can you fix that for me?
Oh, are you getting me another one from that refrigerator?
I thought there was a special beer
She gets
fridge.
her own refrigerator.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like my refrigerator at 34 degrees.
So what about Josh? Tell me all the things.
Well, I grew up, my whole family's musicians pretty much. Like my grandpa and grandma played lots of western swing, played out in bands and just lead guitar mostly. And my grandma yodeled and did that kind of stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
Used to tell jokes
She told lots of jokes.
with her band.
They'd have big things where everybody would come from towns around because we were from real small towns, and they'd have back in the 50s they had it was a whole experience. People playing music, somebody get up there and tell a joke, they're acting all stupid.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And then my dad and both my uncles learned to play guitar. My dad was playing with my grandpa's band at age 6, and he played just lead guitar, and he sang also, but he played Southern rock and old country stuff. And my other uncle played gospel country. My other uncle played Southern rock and stuff like that, but all mainly guitar players, even though they all sang. And then I played guitar since probably kind of a late bloomer for my family, but about 12 or 13. Then I played guitar crappily for years. Then I moved to California and probably started singing when I was maybe about 27, 28.
Really?
Yeah, and hiding in the bathroom because it was awful. And then I started doing a one-man band type thing where I had a couple pieces of wood with a tambourine in between them.
Cool,
Microphone
yeah.
in between there.
Yeah.
I'd
Very
stomp
cool.
on that.
I think I even knew that.
Yep. Go. My first gig in San Diego was at the Tower Bar. Played there, then played all over. Then I got a band around here called Pushing Rope that we still play in. That's pretty awesome. It's just basically what we do on crack. It's like Hank Williams III type stuff.
Yeah, kind of outlaw country sort of.
Yeah.
Not really
We've been talking about this a lot lately, and I think that's kind of an interesting theme with band when you're working as a musician. And you kind of were talking about this a little bit earlier with the kind of burnout thing. Is it's such a tricky thing being a musician because you've got to balance making a living and keeping the band going with all the artistic stuff. And people, the general public, only thinks that it's the artistic stuff. Right. It's you write songs, you make records, but you're at the same time you're learning all right, how many covers? I've got a 3-hour bar gig set that I've got to get together, and then you don't want to get bored with that, so you get the band together and you rehearse new rep, and then it's well, what new covers do we want to do? So you got to fitting songwriting in there and cutting records and all that stuff is such a juggling act. Yeah,
It's very separate for me. I'll go through a phase where I'll sit down and write several songs. Then I'll practice said songs. Then I'll record said songs. And then I'm focused on how everything's working. And kind of my creative mind about writing the songs is really not there during that
Right.
process, at least. I don't know about Carissa.
Yeah, we haven't been writing much since we've been putting out the actual product of a new record.
Yeah.
The creative process has been geared more toward, getting that sound right in there. And we've been practicing our harmonies and, getting that stuff tight so that it sounds good on the record, hopefully. And
Yeah.
your focus gets pulled.
Sure.
And we've definitely been in the midst of that. I shouldn't say we're not creating it all. Like I think we're kind of stewing, like
It's not full force.
both of us have been like reading a lot of books on lyric writing and just getting little little seedlings, and we've been listening to a ton of podcasts. So I'm a little podcast obsessed right now. I love it. And so I think there's a lot of like stewing happening right now. We're kind of building a bank of new ideas. And once this thing is done, I think we'll go crazy on the writing again because we'll have new, clean slate.
Yeah. That actually reminds me of my question was, did you, sounds like you took pretty naturally to co-writing.
Yeah, it wasn't
Yeah.
bad, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely evolved since we started.
Right.
But sometimes, I'll let her take the reins. Sometimes I come to her with a, halfway fleshed out something, and then we finish it. Sometimes she comes with something halfway fleshed out, and I help finish it. It's kind of a give and take.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I do sometimes he'll have the words where you kind of mumble sing.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. You know what the
and then
attitude
I'm
is. Yeah.
I can literally pull words out of the air as he sings. I'm like, it sounds like you're trying to say this.
That's cool.
And so I'll kind of hear some vowel sounds that he's starting to form in these phrases. And then I'll kind of try and put some words in there. And then once we have a line, then we'll build.
Yeah.
That is really cool way to write, though. And I'm glad that you do that. But I got that from an artist that I knew who actually, when he drew, he would, everybody does this, I'm sure. This is how I stumbled across that style of writing, though. But when he drew, it would just look like this big amalgam of nonsense. And it was all in blue, all
Another
over the
good
place.
album name, by the way.
What's that?
Amalgam of nonsense. Yeah.
That is a great.
And then amalgamation of nonsensory.
But there should be
be
a non-sensory cortex in the brain, too. I'm
Non-sensory.
sure there is.
It's
Sorry,
like you
continue.
lose your sense of smell or something.
There's the sensory cortex and the non-sensory cortex. They're right
Basically, I scribble songs. That is all.
Wait, I didn't really hear what you're trying to say.
Well, I'm saying it's a big mess of shit. I'll have I'm like,
Also a good
I'll
album.
get some, bless this mess.
Did she just come over and pick out little pieces of it?
Well, I do it too, and I
Yeah.
kind of showed
Yeah.
her how I do it
Right.
that, because I'll
That's
have
cool.
I'll go through and I'll mumble for 3 or 4 minutes of melody, and then I'll go through and I'm like, man, that sounds like this word, that sounds like this, put it all together, kind of piece it all together like that. But I'm really trying to get into writing more traditional styles, which is hard for me.
This is a slightly separate subject, but I'm really excited to cut out when you just said, I'll show her. I'm just really excited to use that quote out of context.
I'll show her.
Hey, now.
Just with some really ominous, look.
I like where your head's at.
With the
sir.
music from Making a Murderer, some of the theme music from that.
I'll show her.
Create some suspense. And then Carissa went missing.
I'll show her. What was a really cool lyric I thought of the other day about I'll show her the taste of gasoline.
Whoa.
It's kind of decrepit.
I kind of love your super morbid lyrics. That's one of the things that initially attracted to me as a songwriter. I love, because that's what I said when we first met up. I was like, I want these happy, guitar picking happy tunes with these horribly sad, morbid,
Yeah.
depressy lyrics, but
Yeah.
they the juxtaposition of basically alcoholism and cheating and and what else, heartbreak and death, all of that put to a happy little
Totally.
fiddle tune. I love it. I think it's super cool.
That's cool.
Totally.
And that's kind of how this road started. That's what I said to Alyssa. I was like, man, I want to go into these happy little banjo melodies and then have these super sad songs over the top of it.
The best part is she was like, yeah, she wants to do Murder Country. And I'm like, fuck yeah. I'm like, Murder Country's right up my alley. And then I meet her and she's like, yeah, can you do this Dixie Chick song? I'm like, what the fuck is that? It's not Murder Country.
It is not. To be fair, the Dixie Chicks do sing about killing people, the Earl specifically. Secondly,
that's right.
That's not the song we were talking about. But also, that was at a point where we had been playing together for a little while, and we were talking about kind of putting a set together. And I was like, I love these. And actually, to be fair, the Dixie Chick song I picked is actually a Patty Griffin song that they made famous. So it's called Truth Number 2. And It's a great, or number 9. I don't know what number it is. Truth number something.
Number.
That's the love
Some amount of
potion.
truths.
Love potion number 9.
Yeah.
Truth number 2.
Yeah.
I think that's after too much coffee. Truth number 2.
Whoa. I don't want to go down that path.
Josh does not like scatological humor.
No,
No, I don't-
fecal comedy. Yeah.
Pumer.
Yeah, somehow that got weird.
So you're not into scatological humor, and you don't like portmanteau.
Composite.
That's a fucking word
My-
of the day.
Thank you.
Yes.
Alan has come, I mean, I'm sure I told you guys this before, but my friend Alan wants to make a coffee table book called the Composilictionary.
Composition.
And he wants to make
And
it
don't
just
call him your
word-
friend, your ex-husband.
My ex-husband Alan.
Ooh, that got
happened
juicy.
to-
I
he
want to
married
podcast you
Josh
guys
and I.
now.
He was the
kidding?
officiant at our wedding.
the
That's a cool ex.
Yeah. Oh, it wasn't. It's a whole long
It's a
thing.
whole
We
thing.
don't have to go into it here. And our radio listeners now are going to be like, what the fuck?
I know. See, now, now I
If you
want to
know,
follow
you know,
along.
but yes.
Hi.
Did you say vague booking? Mm-hmm. Better than face bragging.
Wait, is that really a term? Because that's
Yes.
one. We were just talking
Yeah.
about that earlier
The
today.
people that do
vague
that.
booking.
Is that
that's like
fishing
baiting,
for
like
attention?
emotional baiting?
Yeah,
like had
Yeah.
a bad day today.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Somebody
Please ask
please
me
ask me
more.
about-
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I suck at life and
Yes.
you people.
Vague booking.
I need
That's
people
so
to
wonderful.
ask me on Facebook.
Can I get a beer, please? No PA. I don't know what I do.
If you say into the
That's
mic,
such a like
Did.
instinctual.
She'll get it. Yeah.
You know what that reminds? Okay, so for our listeners, I am going to explain this one. For our listeners, Carissa just left the room, and Josh said into the microphone, "Carissa, will you please get me another beer?"
Yes.
And that kind of instinct reminds me of every time I go to the gas station and put gas in my car, I have to tap. I can't not shake it first. And it always makes me wonder, like, if ever you were to see if you saw a man take the gas pump out of the gas tank and not tap it or shake it, if they didn't do that,
Doesn't
they're
happen.
like they weren't always a man.
Exactly. Exactly.
You know, that makes a lot of sense now. I've been wondering for years why when I'm finished pumping gas, I pull out and spray it all over the car.
Wow. That's interesting. I just splash it all over my own face. But hey, that's just me.
I was wondering
that
why.
scene from Zoolander where they're just spraying it all over each other.
I was wondering why I always have to touch the bottom of the gas pump
my
and smell
God.
my hand to see if I need to take a shower.
Wow, that got deep. That got deep.
Yes. We talk about very intense topics.
I am right there. I can follow.
Real topic.
I can follow. That
Real
is
people
as
problems.
real as it gets right there. That is as real. It just money shot at his car with gasoline.
Just with your thumb, though, right?
No, that's
It's the hook.
If you're pushing rope, if you're pushing rope, you gotta come
That's
in.
why they call me Captain Hook.
It's like putting an oyster in a parking meter.
Jesus.
Oh, she's back. Okay.
Okay, shh, everybody, shh. Hi.
That's my style, rabbit.
You can drag people into them very
How
easily.
did they do it this time? I just sat back and enjoyed it.
Well, these are our people, apparently. So
This is just random popped into my head. Selfish question because I've been thinking about it myself lately. But what do you guys think of? Do you have an opinion in general about the music climate, like the music scene in San Diego specifically?
I feel like it's always on the cusp of something cool. I mean,
It's been on the cusp for a while.
it's been
I do-
on the cusp.
I do feel like it's approaching a little bit of a tipping point, but I think we run into trouble with kind of the same thing in the restaurants. It's very expensive to live here. And we do have a ton of music venues, but they're really spread out. I think,
Same with the clicks.
yeah, and it's a
Yeah.
little clicky, but I think that's everywhere. I think that's and maybe click is a negative word, but let's say like
Tribal.
people form alliances,
Yeah,
tribes,
totally.
exactly. And I think that has its pros and cons. You've got your team, right?
Totally.
Your people. And I think in general, San Diego is pretty supportive community of musicians. But I think our shows start too late. I think earlier
Yeah.
shows might help. We're a really early to bed, early to rise kind of town. As much as like I'm sure there's a lot of people that like do the nightlife thing, but I mean, in general, San Diego is like pretty sleepy. By 8:30, you
Like
can't get dinner.
The late
anywhere,
crowd
you
are
know.
people who want to go and dance to nightclub dance music, like
Right.
a DJ.
That's exactly
That's the
right.
late.
That's what I get.
Right.
People are definitely up. It's just a different crowd. I think people that
there's,
want to
like-
go out and enjoy a live band are
Right.
people a
Earlier,
couple hours
yeah.
earlier. Just
Yeah.
like start the shows at 7 instead
Totally.
of 9.
Right. Well, and I think like places like there are places like the Casbah where it's like, yeah, you're gonna go out, you're gonna have dinner, you're gonna have a few drinks, and then you're gonna go out with your like jeans and leather jacket,
Right.
and go to Casbah. Like that's an event. It's something you do on the weekend here and there. But like as far as like steady, regular performances, I think earlier would be better. And I think I think it's a tough place to make it happen in any kind of like a trade based skill because it's so very expensive here.
Yeah.
So it's like keeping good musicians is tough. I think people who could have stuck around and really made this scene awesome often end up leaving because it's a tough place.
Going to Austin or Nashville.
Yeah, or
LA
like go to
or-
LA if you're
Yeah.
going to pay California rent and you really want to make it. A lot of people I think end up in LA, which is great, but it's not for everybody. And
Yeah.
I love it, but I still never moved up there.
Yeah.
I love LA.
That's one person in this room.
Yeah, but I've never like pulled the trigger on it. I'd much
Yeah.
rather live here.
I keep having this conversation. I drive for Lyft on the side, so I have the same conversations over and over again. But it's kind of the good thing about that is I get a chance to really think about my attitude about certain things. And a lot of times, if that I'm a musician comes up and people are like, "Oh, where should I go to see music?" And one of the things that set me off thinking about the music scene in San Diego is that I always come up against I can't recommend any place because what I don't see, and maybe this is just my ignorance, but what I haven't seen here is a scene centered around like a scene. Like these are the venues where these types of people go. They're creating a scene. There's this little there's this community of they have all these iconic if you think about through history, like the scene where certain bands that got big came from a scene. There was a scene, there was like a whether it's in New York or somewhere, there's like this handful of little clubs that all these guys played together, but we don't have that.
In San Diego, there aren't a lot of venues that are willing to cultivate and curate.
Right.
It'd be great. So, for example, in LA, there's the Baked Potato. There will never be a
love the
bad
potato.
show
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
Yeah.
because the venue is just about there.
Only
There are people that
having-
have like season tickets or the
Yeah.
equivalent of that. Because every show there's going to be good. There's nowhere like that in San Diego.
No matter
Also,
what
they
night
sell
anybody
baked
can play
potatoes as
anywhere.
their mainstay of bar food, which is freaking brilliant.
That doesn't hurt.
What is
you're
it?
right. You're right.
Their menu is baked potatoes.
Oh,
like
yeah.
literal
Yeah.
potatoes.
We were talking about that last night. Like,
Which, by the way, we're going up to see Alan Hines again on Thursday at the Baked Potato.
Previous podcast guest.
Yes,
Alan Hines.
that's right.
There we go.
That's right.
How dare you talk about previous podcast guests?
Well, I mean,
Best friend
you are the
and
first
confidant.
guest of the podcast
Yes.
this year.
The only ones. Whatever.
Back to the music scene thing.
Thank you.
No,
They're actually,
no, we can't go back.
I mean, there really is a decent. If you look at, different scenes. You look at Soda Bar, the old Zombie Lounge, Casbah, Ken Club. Those are all bars just like what you mentioned. And there's back in the day, up to like 15 to the last 5 years, there was a great circuit of music going in and out of there. And I played those every week, and I
Gotcha.
was playing with punk bands, hardcore bands, and that kind of stuff.
Right.
And that there was a good thriving scene, and then probably still is. It's just I'm not really in that one anymore.
Yeah.
But for other genres of music, there really is nothing like that.
And that's a good.
Well, 15, 20 years ago,
That's a good point,
punk
Brian.
was huge here in San Diego.
yeah.
It was
When we had
like-
Brian and Ashley Wallstrom on, Brian was talking about the punk scene in San Diego from a few years ago, and I think you're right. There's still the remnants. I was having this conversation about the music scene in San Diego. Somebody had just moved here. One of the rides I gave, and I said, "Oh, what kind of music, by the way, do you tend to like?" And he said, he likes indie rock, and I was like, "Oh, well, you're fine."
Yeah.
Like that, and it occurred to me, you're right. There are a couple of genres in that universe where there is a lot of it.
Yeah.
Like if you want to hear great indie rock, you go to Soda Bar, Casbah.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's there,
Yeah.
but there's like only one or
The
two
diversity.
styles that are that have their own scene.
I do feel like San Diego's developing quite a bit of a jazz scene.
Totally.
And that's more like in the last few years,
That's
I'm
true.
seeing
Yeah.
a lot more jazz happening, and we have some stellar jazz
Killer
musicians
jazz
in this city. So I think that's a little bit of a scene. And then I don't know. There's got to be something else.
I think whatever it is, though, you're right. It does boil down to the like willingness. Whoever was saying, were you talking about curating? It boils down to the willingness of a club owner or their talent buyer to insist on like we're gonna make our priority getting good acts in here, and it may go back to the money thing. I mean, the venue owners' rent is so extravagant here that they have to cover their expenses, and so I don't know if they have and pay the bills and make a profit and pay their employees and all that stuff. So it may just be so prohibitively difficult to put anything other than your bottom line at the top of your list. But the jazz thing, like that's a great example. That's the other thing I end up saying to people is there's an incredible sort of almost underground jazz scene here. and I remember $7,000.
Yeah, $7,000 I think has an exceptional bill usually.
And they I haven't been back, so this is not totally verified. I haven't been back to $7,000 in a while, but I've heard that the back room that used to be for music is no longer the music room.
Correct.
And so
it's on a stage about the size of what we're sitting at this table now.
Right. So my assumption is that it probably isn't drawing those cats anymore. Like Gilbert Castellanos used to have a jazz jam every Wednesday. So when you take away,
yeah, that's
so
kind of become the new little spot over there.
I keep hearing like lots of great soul and blues and funk bands playing there.
It's neat. It's outdoors. They've got a little cafe. It kind of takes forever to get stuff, but once you have it, it's cool.
Yeah.
Rocking the service live.
Oh no, that's great service. It's just they're very busy.
Busy, yeah. With
when you get
short
it, it's
staff.
delicious.
It is
The
good.
people
It's
that
good
work there
food.
are always nice.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
If it ever makes it to the table, it's really good.
Yeah, they're all hustling. It's not like they're standing there
I'll
with their
just
hands in
say
their
it.
pockets.
Fuck Panama 66. I mean, that's where this is headed, right? We're all just walking around.
San Diego music scene.
I was just thinking that I was thinking of one specific place, but a lot of places in San Diego are like this. A lot of restaurants, bars, or even some venues. You could find good music there like some nights of the week, but they have to have a karaoke night. They have to have a trivia night. They have to have,
DJ.
Tribute
a DJ
events, a
one
DJ,
night.
something.
And so it's 3 nights a week that they have to have other stuff to keep their, and then only half of the bands that play there can be like good choices. The other half have to be cover top 40 because a lot of the places here.
And that, by the way, not to knock. I mean, there are some great musicians who do cover top 40.
And there are some fantastic top 40 bands in this town.
Yeah.
But yes, exactly. I agree with that. And I think that's kind of part of the problem with the city in general is one, we're very catering to tourism because we are a tourist city, which is incredible. And they keep the wheels turning around here. Mm-hmm. But I feel like the music in venues is often like an amenity. Like if you were to go to a spa, we're like, well, we have a sauna, we have a pool, there's showers, free slippers.
Right. There's also a guy over here playing acoustic guitar, and he'll bring you towels. Right. Yeah, it's just like a little perk.
No, that's exactly right. That's your point. They aren't venues, and that's mostly what we have in San Diego. Is it's an amenity.
Yeah,
right. Exactly.
Well, and that's definitely how.
Exactly.
We paid better than if we played a music venue.
Right.
But also there are
I
bars.
love playing music venues where they had packed 4 bands into a night and just jam it out. But you'd be lucky to walk away with $80.
Exactly.
For the whole band.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
For the whole night, for all 4 bands.
Yeah, for everyone.
Everybody just gives all their money.
But I mean, like there's a lot of actual big venues that do have to have a big name that is a cover of, a cover band.
Yeah.
A tribute band, and then the supporting acts can be original in the same vein. But it's the same thing as having to have a karaoke night at a bar. It's at the venue, you have to have the name of this tribute band and then the other people that support them. You can't it's really hard as a local original act to pull enough because you have to play so much if this is like the thing you're doing, unless you have a total full-time job and you only play 2 shows a year. But who as a musician can do that, if you're...
I joke that like my friends have been literally watching me sing and hearing about my shows that I'm playing for 10 years. Like, I mean, I've lived here 11 years and my friends that have been with me the whole time, like, oh, where are you playing this weekend? And it's like casual banter. They have zero intention of coming to see me sing because they've seen it a bunch. And they're like, yeah, you're great. Like, I mean, it's not like they don't like my singing capabilities. They love it, but it's like they can't come to a show every weekend and support you like that.
Totally.
So it's like then you have to filter out all those little gigs, but you want to promote those too because they're taking care of you. They're paying you. So it's like you don't want to just sweep those aside. But at the same time, you kind of have to like funnel the few people that will actually show up and see you play when you
to
call
the
them.
few shows.
You have
that
to be
really
like Sycamore Den, where we're gonna play coming up.
On the
Both
18th.
King Taylor Project and Rosa's Cantina on January 18th. What'd you say?
Rosas Taylor.
Cantina project.
I don't know. That's good. But anyway, like I think that's a venue I love bringing people to because it's a neat environment. I love that little stage, and we like Kelsey. I think she does a great job over
Previous
there.
podcast guest.
Yep.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
I didn't hear that one yet.
Podcast number 2.
You know what we need to do? This is a shout out to the guys at That Pedal Show. Love you guys, Dan and Mick. But they have a thing whenever they name drop. They have a little like
Oh my God, that'd be so funny. I totally caught myself doing it. I was like, oh, you dropped that back there. I think I've done that twice now. But anyway, these are all, we're all friends here. But anyway, I think she does a great job, and I love that venue, and we're going to play there, so I think it was worth mentioning. But I think they've got a little bit of a scene going. And like Adams Avenue in general, I think there's a little bit of a music thing happening.
Totally.
I think the proximity of places is tough in San Diego. We're really spread out. I mean, we play gigs everywhere from like the Kraken down to how far south do we go? I mean, all over La Mesa and
The
border.
That's always amazing to me when we'll play a show like in La Mesa or UTC or Adams Avenue, and people are like, "Oh, where do you guys play?" And we'll name a couple venues, even as close as La Mesa, which for non-San Diego listeners is like 10 miles away at the most. We're like, yeah, well, we play at this bar in La Mesa, and they're like, no.
Yeah.
The only ones they ever show
where
interest in are the ones that are right next to where you're playing.
It's a
right
joke.
then.
Exactly.
It's a running gag about San Diegans. They won't leave their neighborhood.
Even though there's 800
we talked about it today. We're in OB, and we're
Yeah.
like, well, this is why you don't leave OB. This traffic sucks. Like,
Right.
It's not that bad.
Right.
When I book stuff, it's I'll play a show in OB. You play a show in Kensington. You play a show in fucking North Park.
Totally.
You gotta play
then
everywhere.
After like a month and a half, you
But
just loop that shit.
Yeah.
That is one of the reasons why it is totally acceptable and sustainable to live in San Diego and be a full-time musician. Because San Diego is so big, you can play
Right.
like 4 shows a week, 5 shows a
There's
week.
no such thing as
and
oversaturation.
Still be
Yeah.
able
Yeah.
to like
Build.
meet new people and build an audience. Albeit kind of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You go to their neighborhoods, you play there, and you can play every night of the week as long as it's in a different neighborhood
Yeah,
every night.
totally.
Yeah.
Totally. That's really interesting. By the way, just that question, I wanted to bounce that off of someone else's. I always am curious when people ask, where do you play? Like, where do you normally play? Is it like a thing? Do people think that musicians like play one? I don't understand the question usually. Yeah. So I've learned how to answer it gracefully.
Somebody literally asked today, do you guys have a venue that you play?
Yeah, what does that
A
mean?
venue.
So listeners,
And also-
can you please write into Go Team at About Podcast and let us know what that question means? What do you think that the question means? Where do you play?
Bitch, we
I'm
just
playing.
we're playing
right here.
I think one
About
of the
6
things
And
feet
other
that way
places.
after I leave this bar.
one of the other things that I notice is that when people ask that, if I name a venue in San Diego, you're not going to recognize it because there aren't a lot. There's like 4 main maybe ones that you would recognize the name of. The rest of the places that people play, the next 300 places that people play, you wouldn't, unless you go there, it's right next to your house, you wouldn't know. Like I'm playing at this random bar down the street, but there's Music Box, there's Casbah, Trill. Hello. There's Soda Bar. Like there's
Belly
like a
Up.
few
Yeah.
Belly Up. There's a few small, a few places that you would recognize. But when you ask that question in San Diego, you're not actually expecting an answer.
Right.
Well,
the
again,
way that
that's
you
I feel
think
like
you
it's
are.
kind of like what do they call that? Rhetorical question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Where they,
It's a do you play music any more than just at this place I am seeing
Maybe
you
that's
right
the
now?
question. Maybe they're trying to figure out, Yeah. Are you woodshedding like here? Is this just like a casual gig?
We play in the Chinchilla studio.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
We don't really.
That's all we do.
Yeah.
I think generally people are dumb. Because I got like 4 questions I hate.
Yeah.
One of them is, that one.
Yeah.
The second one is, do you guys play wagon wheel?
No, God.
The third
It's this
one is
generation's Freebird.
the third one is what do you sound like? Another band. And the fourth one I forget because I'm getting drunk.
Well, then you need
These are
to-
trigger questions
Yeah.
for Josh.
Yeah.
He gets very triggered.
Do you guys get paid?
Oh, God.
Oh,
You guys actually
I don't
make
think
money?
we've got that
I've never
one.
heard that one. Mm-mm.
Or what did we talked about? People at work being like asking
gotcha.
us to come play like the Christmas party
Oh, yeah.
and not wanting
Yeah.
to pay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or something. No, his work didn't do this. It was an example.
Yes,
Right.
they did, Todd.
We've run into the question a couple times where
Fuck
the people,
Todd.
I know, right? I don't even know him. I don't like him. I'm gonna spit on his face.
Oh my God, Todd, no.
Todd, that costs extra.
What did we get the other day? Somebody came up to us at Hooley's, some girl, and was like, after watching us play 3 hours of material, originals, covers, all kinds of things, she said, so do you do anything with this? And we were we say, this is what you just saw us do. Like
She was asking,
she
like,
said,
do you,
are you on?
are you like a real band? Is kind of the way she
And
meant
she
to.
specifically mentioned a reality show.
Yeah.
People are dumb.
Like, do you go? Are you go on The Voice? Do you go on
Yeah.
American Idol? And I was
Right.
like, oh God.
She thinks this is
That's
play.
the $1 million
and that's
question.
not to
3
knock
hours
her.
you
Not
just
to
watched us play.
not to knock her because we do most of our listeners are. Most of the 10 listeners we have are probably non-musicians. So, but
Love you guys.
But yeah, they're like
People
our
aren't
parents
stupid.
and
Yeah.
the Bergerons.
They know
and,
these
Yeah, they know these
questions
questions.
are annoying, though.
But it's yeah. I think people just don't realize that it's different because we're trying to wrap up, but it's like pro sports. If you're a pro athlete, you're on TV. You're on an NFL team. If you're a pro football player, but that's not how music works. Like those of us like that were at bars, were playing for $300-400. That is real. That is just as much the job that we do as it is if you're playing Madison Square Garden. It's the same job. It's just where are you in your career?
glamour.
Who's around you? What kind of pay are you getting?
Right.
How many people have seen the show? But that's music. That's professional music.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and like people that go out on tour with, whomever, if you land a tour, say with like Ricky Martin.
Right.
Yeah, you
She
go all
does
through
bang.
South.
Cool,
she
relevant
bangs.
example.
You're welcome.
We're
Cool
so
contemporary
fucking old.
reference. Go on.
I know. I just I couldn't think of anything better.
Members of Menudo.
Okay, say I actually have friends from Florida that tour with Ricky Martin. That's why this
Okay,
comes up
there we go.
as an example. So yeah, I mean the point is like these people that go out and get paid very good money to tour on a national famous act because maybe Ricky Martin's not super relevant to us right now, but somewhere in the world he is. They come back and they play the gig. They play the bars. They play the clubs.
Exactly.
They come back off tour and they play the same gigs you and I
Yeah.
do. They just get to get on a plane every once in a while and go do it with more money and more people
Yeah.
watching, and that's the only difference, and a lot of those people are on the same caliber of musician as everyone in this room and everybody that we are consider peers and
Yeah.
colleagues. Like, it doesn't make them like necessarily a superior musician because they got that gig.
Right.
Sometimes it does. I mean,
But
Well, yeah. You think
but
about.
they would probably get the same question at the same
Yeah.
place.
And my
after
mom still
playing 3
doesn't
hours.
like know how to tell people what I do. I'm like,
Yeah.
Mom, I'm a singer. She's
Yeah.
like, what does that mean? She's like, yes, but what do you do?
Yeah.
Like, my mom's
Yeah.
like, what do I tell my customers? I'm like, well, you're a hairdresser. What do you do?
Right.
You cut hair.
Yeah.
I sing. Like, there's nothing else to talk
People,
about.
I think people don't realize you can get compensated for doing.
Yeah, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People don't
All
realize
jokes
like that's a
aside.
That's why a
real
lot of-
payable skill.
That's why a lot of people
Well,
don't become
people-
musicians.
Yeah.
They're
Right.
like, there's no way I can get paid to do this.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
You still probably don't really get paid enough to do this.
Sure.
But sometimes you do. Sometimes you get great. It depends on what you're doing. Everybody has their standards. But
It's
It all equals out to shit pay.
Yeah.
yeah, and well, that's the it's
you
it's
win
the
that Ricky
middle.
Martin tour, bro.
It's the
Fingers
middle
crossed.
ground that people don't
see.
don't understand that exists. People think that you're either a bedroom musician or you're famous.
Right.
Yeah, or like
Or you're on
the
TV.
starving artists, which
Yeah.
occasionally. I mean, I haven't been starving lately, clearly. So it's like
I mean, it's like
actually starve very often.
it's like sports, which I don't watch. I mean, you look at like low grade baseball players that are out there making $800 a game versus the ones that are, you know,
Right.
it's still their life.
That's
It's still,
true.
they've dedicated their entire life to being the best they can at that.
We just watched a show called. Have you seen Sideman? It's on Netflix.
I don't watch TV.
It's focused. I think it's mostly focused on like a hard rock guys, but it's all these these people who, you know, they get hired to go tour the band for a while, and then but they say, and I've seen it on other, but they all, if you watch it, folks, you'll see that they're like, yeah, people know, like when you're on tour with you know, Ozzy Osbourne or something, they see that, they see the time that you're Madonna's guitar player or whatever, but they don't see that, like, when that tour is over, you're fucking, there's like months you're like broke, you're playing bar gigs or whatever, and then you go get it's not a meritocracy. Like, music is not the idyllic, like, because I was been thinking about this the other day too. In business, you really don't have to be there's no competition in the sense that you don't have to be one of the best accountants to get paid well for accounting. You just have to be competent and work at a good company. Music is not like that. Like, you don't.
Every company needs an accountant.
Everybody doesn't need a musician. Right. Yeah. So that's the other thing people don't realize, is that they sort of assign the merit. They if you're not famous, I think people tend to write you off like, oh, you're just a hobbyist. But that's not true. It takes so much more in music.
Well, and I think a lot of it is circumstantial too. It's
totally.
like it's not a
not
completely
skill.
talent-based merit. There's a lot of stuff that
There's
goes into
other
becoming
stuff.
A lot of
star.
non-musical things.
Yeah.
Right. So many
What
non-musicians.
does somebody want to market? What's happening at the
Yeah.
time in
Yeah,
music?
nothing
What
to do
city
with
do you live in? Who do you know?
Exactly, yeah.
Who's your uncle?
Who is your father? Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
How lucky you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, right place, right time. And I think we, in our, like, you know, relative, kind of age group in this room, like, fell right between the part of life where you could be Jewel and get discovered in a coffee shop for doing what you do, and the YouTube sensation.
Totally.
I feel like we really
We're right in the
are
middle.
splitting the fence there, which is a tricky
Place to be.
tough place to grow up as a musician.
That's going to be so much fun to mix. Thanks, Josh.
Mid-sentence.
We're going to have a CD release for our album that we are still doing pretty much April 28th. And I'd like to give a shout out to our bass player, Nick Shores, as well as our fiddle player, Adam Ainsworth. And us and King Taylor are going to be ripping some ass at Sycamore Den. Not ripping ass.
I wish people could see this.
What?
All of the eye rolling.
Oh, if they know you, they know it's there.
I'm really good at rolling my eyes at Josh. Okay, that was very concise.
Yeah, that was lovely.
Good. Right on. Ripping some ass.
Ripping some ass.
Yeah.
That's the name of this podcast. Is ripping
ass with
Rosas
Rosas
Cantina.
Rosas Cantina.
We have no chips and salsa.